Welcome into Deep Waters here on ProBox TV. We take a deep dive into all things boxing. Jimmy Smith in studio alongside Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen, we have some breaking news we need to discuss. Janibek Alimkhanuly was set to defend his title. It was an IBF and WBO middleweight title defense against Andre Mikhailovich in Las Vegas. It turns out that fight will not be happening due to a hospital visit. Had to go to Spring Valley Medical Center on Thursday after he failed, quote, cutting the final pounds. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. He didn't go to the scale and miss weight. Weigh-in didn't even happen. But we talked yesterday, Chris, about 147, a marquee weight class that right now is a little bit thin. You have Boots Ennis. We're waiting for some names to go in and out of that division. 160, a desert right now, and this major fight falling through. What does it mean for the division? You also might have a guy who has 2 titles who can't fight at 160 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, middleweight is a barren wasteland at this point, and also Alimkhanuly is the guy at the weight. He is the guy that everybody looks at. This was a unification bout against a guy that he was supposed to beat. So this happening at this point is it's a tough situation to be in. You know, not only for Janibek, but also for Top Rank, his promotion, for the card itself, and the division itself. What happens now? If the top dog, the guy that everybody's looking at, is going to be the guy that potentially was going to be able to take over the division, can't make weight anymore? I mean, is he going to be able to make weight in the future? We don't know. He might have to move up, and that leaves a big vacuum in the weight class, in a weight class that's already pretty barren. So this is a very interesting thing that happened.
Paulie, Alimkhanuly obviously not able to make the weight, but what we were talking about off air a little bit was promoters get hesitant about putting promotional muscle behind you at that weight class. Is he done at 160, or do you think it was maybe a hiccup he can get over?
You know what? He's a guy who comes from part of the world where they're usually very, very disciplined. So if he didn't make weight, or he got sick making the weight and now he's not even going to be able to fight it, he probably, judging by the character of fighters from the East, he probably tried everything he could to make weight, got himself sick, and that's it. I mean, this might be it for the weight class, you know. And again, you don't want to prejudge Eastern and Western fighters, but sometimes I've seen Western fighters not make weight and then go back to the weight class and make the weight. So sometimes that's just a bit of laziness or a bit of undisciplined mindset. But I think based on the fact that he's an Eastern fighter, typically they're a bit more serious. And I'd say that if he got himself sick trying to make the weight and ended up in the hospital, he's probably done with this weight class. Just based off of that information.
Another thing, Chris, before we move on. Oh, yeah, Eastern European fighters, very, very disciplined. They also tend to be big for the weight class. Well, across combat sports, you're a kickboxer, wrestler, they're big for the weight class. Is it a case of that?
Yesterday's press conference, I was looking at the two of them standing next to each other. I was like, he looks gigantic. He looks way bigger than his opponent. And then today we hear that he couldn't make the weight last night. So, yeah, he was always big for the weight class. Got a very, very big frame. And listen, it doesn't get easier as you get older. So to your point, champ, yeah, a guy like him, I'm sure he was doing everything possible to make the weight. And I'm sure he was very disciplined, dedicated throughout this camp. If he's not making this weight, he might never make that weight again.
Yeah, but he's big enough for 168. We'll see if he moves up or what his future might be. Speaking of futures, of course, the future of Vergil Ortiz, very important to everyone at Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya included, of course. Sergey Bohachuk, it looks like the next fight for Vergil Ortiz, but there are some plans for the future of Vergil Ortiz. Lance Pugmire from Boxing Scene caught up to Oscar De La Hoya. This is what Oscar De La Hoya had to say about it.
I feel that fight can be a super fight. The build-up starts now. Like, literally, starts now. I believe it was Ryan Garcia who called out Vergil. I believe they fought in the amateurs twice. I believe Ryan has 2 wins against him. So, 3 strikes and you're out, right? So let's make it in the pros. I think that's very doable. I think that fight at 154 can happen next year at Dallas Cowboys Stadium with Jerry Jones. I'm calling it now. I think that fight is very doable.
Ryan Garcia versus Vergil Ortiz at 154. A lot of stops before this potential fight might happen on both sides of this fight equation. What do you think about this potential matchup? Of course, a lot of issues right now with Ryan Garcia, but before the Bohachuk fight, does this put extra pressure on not only winning for Vergil Ortiz, but winning impressively? What's your thought on it, Chris?
As far as I'm concerned right now, this is a fantasy matchup. Like, we're so many steps away from this ever happening. Ryan is banned until April of next year. And Vergil has a very tough fight ahead of him coming up next month. Yep. He's going to have another fight between then and at least one fight between then and when Ryan can actually fight again next summer, maybe 2. So there's a lot of steps on the process to making that fight happen. And we got to see if Ryan actually is going to fight again when he does come back. We never know, especially with everything that's going on with him outside of the ring. This is just Oscar putting on his promoter hat. He's keeping Ryan in the news minute. He knows Ryan pushes numbers, and people are going to talk about it. We're talking about it right now. He's got his guy Vergil coming up in a few weeks. So, yeah, I think Oscar's very smart. He utilizes media, expertly, and he's doing it once again.
Right, but Paulie, the other side of this equation, first thing I thought when I heard this interview was, this is a guy you said needs mental health help. The idea there wasn't even lip service to if he's okay, if we can get his problems worked out, he'll be ready for next year. Not even mentioning the problems Ryan Garcia is having. What are your thoughts on that, if any?
Yeah, I'm not going to make a victim out of him. If he does need some help, I think, but I'm not going to make a victim out of him. I'll tell you this. What I get out of that interview is, tell me you don't care about performance-enhancing drugs being rampant in boxing without telling me you don't care. That is crazy. You're just going to tell me that a guy who was at lightweight a year ago has trouble making 140, probably because of the performance enhancers he was taking as part of that reason, is going to now jump up 2 more weight classes in the span of a year and then fight one of the biggest punchers in the weight class at 154 pounds, a guy who can barely make the weight himself, right? I mean, what are we going to say? Just tell me nobody cares about performance-enhancing drugs. The only way some of these fights can happen is because of performance-enhancing drugs. Weight classes are mattering less and less and less in boxing in all these conversations. Just tell me you don't care. That's it. Let's just be blunt about it. Tell us we don't care. In the comment to fans, we know most of you don't care either. Just let's be blunt about it. Let's say we don't care. And that way the commissions, maybe they'll just allow everything to just fly the way they want it to be. That's crazy to me. Forget about Brian's head being a head case. That's another issue altogether. No. But and the fact that he's out for a year, that's another issue altogether. Really? We're going to talk about the guy who was at 135 a year ago. Now he just got to 140. Has trouble making weight at 140. Now we kind of know why. And he's going to go up 2 more weight classes. So tell me what he's going to be doing in the next year. Without telling me what he's going to be doing in the next year. So let's start with that point. He's not going to be tested in the next year. He's suspended. So for the full year, what's he going to be doing? He's going to come back at 154. What is he going to be doing?
Meanwhile, people have no problem mentioning Ryan with Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis rematches. So what are we talking about? This kid's never going to be near 140 ever again. He didn't make it last time. He's not going to make it ever again. He's not going to make it a year from now being off. And now we're talking about him fighting 54 against a top contender. So, yeah, you're right, Champ. It's just, again, I think it's people attaching to Ryan because he gets so much media attention.
That's right. Well, moving up to the 154-pound division, it is stacked. It is full. Who is the man at 154 pounds? It's an interesting question, and Vergil Ortiz's place in it when we come back.
Wednesday Night Fights. Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, July 31st, ProBox veterans Alberto Palmetta and Jesus Sriracha return to battle it out in the main event.
Welcome back into Deep Waters. Our main events have been absolutely outstanding. ProBox TV. We have another one coming up. Argentina versus Mexico. It's going to be an all-action banger. Can't wait to call it Get Ringside. That's right, on the ProBox TV app. Download it now. So when we look at 154 pounds, of course, Vergil Ortiz, a huge name in it, taking on Bohachuk. Are we underestimating Bohachuk's ability at 154? It's a deep weight class. What do you think his chances are? Let's start with that.
Are we underestimating him? Yes.
Yes.
He looked phenomenal his last fight. Brian Mendoza is a staple in the division as being a super tough guy. He's never been stopped. He's never been down. Bohachuk dominated him. He showed his class in that fight. He also showed how big he is. He is 6 feet tall. He's a big puncher. He's only gone the distance one time. That was with Brian Mendoza, and no one's ever stopped him. So that was a phenomenal performance from Bohachuk, and I think he's a very, very dangerous guy at the weight class. He has the one loss against Brian Adams where he got knocked out. But he got knocked out with a left hook. And Vergil Ortiz has got a great left hook. So that if it was not for that, I would really be questioning if Vergil Ortiz is going to get past him at this point. And that's why I think a lot of people are overlooking Bohachuk. But regardless, while the fight lasts, I think it's going to be very entertaining.
Is that part of the situation to you, Paulie? When you look at the weight class, when you look at, for example, if you look at Fundora, if you look at Madrimov, they all these kind of strange physical skills of course, the build of Fundora, incredibly tall, incredibly long. Tim Tszyu, a warrior. But the power of Vergil Ortiz, whenever we talk about him, that's what rises to the top. Do you think that makes him the man at 154 or gives him at least a leg up on all these other names?
Yeah, and he's got those phenomenal power, devastating KOs, and also he's undefeated. Because let's face it, Boachuk has all but one of his wins are by knockout as well. But that KO loss makes him a little bit, makes you think there's a little bit of a chink in the armor of Boachuk as far as chins are concerned, right? Especially when you realize he's facing such a big puncher in Vergil Ortiz. But Ortiz being undefeated and having all knockout wins, you think, okay, this guy's enough. Right now, all we know of this guy, branding wise, image wise, is he's just an indestructible machine. He just mows right through guys, and he mows through guys who should probably go some rounds, and he mows through them rather quickly and doesn't even let them go rounds. So the Boachuk fight really does excite me. I get it. Boachuk's been stopped. I get it, but he was winning that fight as well. I think it's going to be like two trains colliding. This is going to be a really, really fun fight. Let's see who the big train is.
When you talk about fighters who are overlooked, how about Tim Tszyu? Of course, the loss of Fundora. Remember, that was late notice, a tricky opponent. A lot of people think the cut is what decided that fight. I mean, the judges, they say judge blood. You can't really get around that. What's your thought on him perhaps being overlooked, Chris, in this division?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's one of the top flight guys in the division still to this date, even with the loss of Fundora, which, listen, let's be honest. If they stopped that fight, which they should have over that cut, he wins the fight. And they let the
Clash
fight
of
go
heads,
on.
by the way. If you
Clash
guys
of
didn't
heads,
see the fight,
accidental injury, very, very bad injury. In any other world, any other galaxy, that fight gets stopped. And it gets stopped early, and Tim Tszyu was dominating early on. He ends up walking away with technical decision. That night didn't work out that way, and now he has a loss, and now he's, like you said, a bit forgotten. He was supposed to step in and fight Vergil Ortiz in a couple weeks, but that cut was so bad it did not heal in time, so he's out of that fight as well, and again, sitting on the sideline. But is he still a top flight guy in the weight division? Absolutely. Could he be the guy of the division and actually beat everybody? Absolutely. He is that good. It's a very, very deep division at this point, and I want to see him with all those top guys. I want to see a rematch with Fundora. I want to see him fight Vergil Ortiz. My mouth was watering when that fight was announced. I mean, that's like, talk about two trains meeting, like you said, champ. Yeah. I mean, that's like two epic guys fighting it. I mean, incredible matchup. But yeah, I want to see him with all those guys.
Well, the one name we have not discussed, Terrence Crawford at 154 pounds. Paulie, we've laid out all the names. Who do you think would be the biggest realistic challenge for him at 154?
Tszyu was on his way. If that situation in the Fundora fight doesn't happen, Tszyu has got a lot of momentum behind him. Also, guys, the cut was from an elbow, actually, not from a headbutt.
Oh, yeah, right.
How tall Fundora is. He was in his
That's so great.
It's so rare.
On top of the head from an elbow.
Yeah.
It was a head-to-elbow clash. It wasn't even an elbow like that he threw out there. It was a head-to-elbow clash because the guy's so tall. But nonetheless, I thought Tszyu had a lot of momentum behind him, and I thought that would probably be the guy to get Crawford next. He was able to get past Fundora. I don't think he got robbed in the Fundora fight. I think he, scoring-wise, once that cut got in his face, it affected him in the rounds, and he was losing more of the rounds. I think he got robbed in the fact that the commission had a clown without the makeup as a ringside doctor and didn't do his job. But I think it sets him back. It certainly takes away a lot of the promotability, the momentum as far as promotability that was behind him. As I said, I thought that he could be the guy to get in there with Crawford. Crawford is a big name and probably wants to deal with big name fighters at the moment. He's going to get a belt from Madrimov if he does win that fight. And then he's probably going to look for big names again. Madrimov is an excellent fighter, but with only 8 pro fights, is not a big name fighter yet. So he's kind of going away from going after the big names and going after Madrimov. It's kind of a high risk, low reward fight. I mean, yes, the reward is the WBA title, but the high risk is the fact that Madrimov can really fight well. So if he gets that fight though, and he gets the win, you probably expect Crawford to be looking for bigger names, bigger opponents. And had Tszyu won the Fundora fight, that would have been the one, at this weight class. I don't know without Tszyu having won that fight now, if there is one guy that really sticks out in your mind at 154 pounds that has the major star power, aside from the Spence rematch. But does anybody really want to see it unless Spence can come back and look a little bit of the part that he's supposed to? I don't know. It's going to go in a lot of ways, but Crawford will remain a polarizing figure and a central part of the conversation at 154 as long as he stays there and as long as he continues to look like the Bud Crawford we know and love at 37 years old. It is a fight-to-fight thing as well.
Well, speaking of polarizing figures, right now, the free agent, Shakur Stevenson, where will he go? Another polarizing figure he might go to, Oscar De La Hoya. We'll discuss it when we come back. Slick boxer with knockout power, great footwork. That's right. We're talking about Boots Ennis. We're also talking about the jackets of J-Rod. How is his pick? How is his look? Find out right now on the better side.
Back at it on the better side. Another weekend of good boxing going on. And we're going to Philadelphia. Yeah, the fighting city. The Phillies are doing great. And Jaron Boots Ennis is back home in Philly to take on David Avanasian for his IBF welterweight championship. Yes, Ennis is the champion here, and he's a monster favorite. If you look up at our friend sportsbetting.ag, Ennis minus 4,000, while Avanasian is plus 1,400, and I don't think he is a live dog at all. So how do you approach this? Well, I was checking Ennis's record. He's 31-0, but more impressive to me, 11 first-round knockouts. So Ennis by stoppage, well, that's minus 775. No thanks. So how do we get into the weeds here? How do we get to the better side? Well, Ennis by stoppage rounds 1 through 3, that's plus 225 at sportsbetting.ag. I like that a lot. Remember, Avanasian lost to Terrence Crawford, and that is a big sort of measuring stick for Boots Ennis, because he wants to get to Crawford's level. He wants to rule, unify, and be the king at 147. Crawford knocked down Avanasian in the 6th round, so I'm going to have to see if I'm Ennis. I want it to be less than 6 rounds. How about an early stoppage rounds 1 through 3 plus 225? And what is our pizza and beer money bet? Easy. Ennis first round knockout. Remember, he's got 11 of them in his career. How about plus 950, almost 10-1 over at sportsbetting.ag. It's going to be a great weekend. Hope you have some fun. Shakur got us paid last week. Boots is going to do it again. I'm Jim Rodriguez, and that's the better side.
Ugly jackets, but good fight opinions. What do you think of course, Boots Ennis getting an early knockout over Avanasian? Do you think it's a good bet?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the guy is on a roll for a reason, and it's not the jackets, it's the calls, and the calls have been good.
And how do you wear a little handkerchief, pocket square? How does that work? Is it supposed to be small?
There's certain ways to do it. There's a way that I do it, and there's a way that J-Rod does it.
There you go. Just differences of opinion here at ProBox TV. Well, let's talk about some differences of opinion. Shakur Stevenson, now a free agent, you all know, turned down a guaranteed $15 million with Top Rank. Could he go to Golden Boy? Well, Oscar De La Hoya had some words and some criticisms for Shakur Stevenson. Here's what he had to say.
He needs opponents. He needs the right names. He needs William Cepeda. Look, he's a tremendous talent. I mean, probably one of the best top 3 guys out there, seriously, in the world. And he's still young, but I'm not sure what his market value is. And that's where it's making it a little difficult. It made it difficult for Top Rank and Bob, determining what the value is. I mean, it doesn't help when Shakur tells the world, well, I don't fight for the people, I fight for me. Well, you got to fight for the fans. The fans pay you. The fans are the ones who buy the tickets, buy the pay-per-views. So, regardless, look, I think Shakur is one of the best fighters out there. If it makes sense for us, then I'm sure we can work something out.
Everyone I have spoken to about this interview, they all say the same thing. Chris, we discussed it off air. As soon as you criticize Shakur Stevenson at all, he shouldn't be tweeting about this. It's almost like, all right, well, then he's going to trash De La Hoya and this relationship's finished. That's literally what everyone has said about it. Are we wrong?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, because Oscar can deliver Cepeda. I mean, it's not a world title fight, but I mean, Shakur already has a title fight. Right. You know what Shakur wants. Shakur wants Tank. He wants the biggest fight in the division. He needs that kind of fight. He needs these guys to step in the ring with him. But Zepeda's a good step, man. He's getting a lot of people behind him. You know, he's got the Mexican fan base. He goes out there and he shuts out a Cepeda, William Cepeda. That's a big step. I mean, it's going to get a lot of eyes on you. People are going to see how good he is. I got a quick story about when Shakur fought Nakatilla on an undercard of a top-ranked show. Bob asked me after, how do you think the kid did? I'm like, I thought he looked good. He shut the guy out. The guy was dangerous with a good right hand. I'm like, but Bob, just put him in with the biggest fights because he's going to do the same thing to these guys as he does to the top guys. But people are going to recognize the top guy getting shut out. They're not going to recognize these guys. So it's kind of that situation again with Shakur. He just has to get in the ring with the best guys in the world so he can do what he does. If Oscar De La Hoya can divvy that and can deliver that, hey, we might have a deal.
Paulie, what's your thought about this potential, at least short-term marriage, Oscar De La Hoya and Shakur Stevenson? What's your thought on and how enthusiastic do you think Oscar looked? Seemed to be hedging his bets a little.
Of course, Oscar is, going to put his promoter's hat on. He's going to try to sign the best fighters out there, and any promoter, when there's one of the top fighters in the sport is a free agent, is going to be looking to make their play. Oscar is staking his claim right there. He's offering Zepeda. You want big fights? I got a big fight for you. I got Zepeda. The only problem is this, okay? First of all, Zepeda is not a world champion yet. He's still an ascending, growing name. I think he's going to be a fun fighter to watch for years to come. But the issue with Zepeda is Zepeda's probably a guy, being Mexican-American or Mexican on the West Coast, you're probably going to be able to build him into a big star if you're a Golden Boy. Are you bringing Shakur Stevenson in there so that you hope that Zepeda beats him, so that, you can ascend, you can make Zepeda's star continue to grow? Are you going to be, looking to protect Shakur and get him to the biggest money fights possible, or do you just want to use him as fodder? And that's one thing to ask yourself. Secondly, is if Shakur beats Zepeda, what can Golden Boy do for him after that? Are they going to be able to acquire those big fighters, those other big fights that you essentially need to keep that momentum going after you beat a Zepeda? It's because the critics are going to say, oh, who had Zepeda fought yet and all this other stuff. I think if you shut out Zepeda, it's an amazing performance. But there's haters in this thing, and they dress up as critics, and they dress up as media, and they dress up as fans, and they start hating anything to keep their boy Gervonta Davis away from Shakur Stevenson. They'll make up that excuse. I think Gervonta wants the biggest fights possible. I think at this point he's coming into his prime. I think Shakur wants the biggest fights possible. He's been wanting it for a while. I think this fight could get made soon. Let's see if Shakur is able to acquire a big contract with a big promoter and get himself an important fight. In the meantime, we'll probably see Gervonta Davis and Lomachenko and see how Gervonta looks there, because even an aging Lomachenko could be the most difficult opponent of Gervonta Davis's career.
Well, let's look at the other players here. Eddie Hearn can get a fight, obviously, in Saudi Arabia. It looks like could be against Mark Chamberlain. Arum, of course, he turned down Arum's offer. Does have Lomachenko, does have Baranchyk. PBC has Tank Davis. If you were a betting man right now, better side, where does Shakur Stevenson end up, Chris? Where are you putting your chips?
I was surprised he left Top Rank. I thought there was opportunities there for him to unify against Baranchyk, which would be an easy fight to make. And
guaranteed $15 million as well.
And I think guaranteed $3 million, because it's a
per
$15
fight
million deal. Right. So, but the Baranchyk fight, not only would that be an easy fight to make, I think it would be an easy fight to win. So Shakur then becomes unified. He has 2 of the belts. Now looks like we're going to see the Gervonta Lomachenko fight. We're going to get 2 more belts unified. Now we got 2 unified champions. If we're going to get an ultimate undisputed, that's the fight to make. And, Bob has been able to work with PBC before, so it made sense to me that Top Rank would be the move. But then Shakur did an interview, and he said that Bob couldn't get me the big fight. Top Rank wasn't able to secure me the big fights. So then I understood more about where he was moving. So moving now, listen, it seems to me like Shakur and his team are just going to try and skip everything and go right to the big fight as soon as they can. But the problem is that, as you said, Champ, we've got Tank and Lomachenko fighting. So now there's space to fill. Is he going to go over to Golden Boy, fight Zepeda, which is a tough fight, but can then he get delivered to make that Gervonta Davis Lomachenko winner? We don't know. It's a tough situation. Shakur's not in a great spot in terms of just the layout of the land right now. He's in a great spot because everyone's going to want to sign him. He's going to be able to speak to every single one of these promoters. But I think I've said this on other shows. I don't think Shakur's chasing money. He's chasing legacy. He's chasing the biggest fights possible. You mentioned the Chamberlain fight. That does nothing for him. It's a payday. He had decent paydays at Top Rank. $3 million in fights, not bad. Especially guarantees. When you fight Gervonta, it's not going to be $3 million. It's going to be $3 million plus points on pay-per-views, which will be a big, so I don't know. It's really, he's in a curious spot. And I think we're all watching with bated breath to see what the next move is going to be. But there's so much going on with the lightweight division. I think this is an interesting time. That's why we talk about it every day now.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, right, the turn of a legend, Chocolatito, coming back to the ring. We'll discuss him and the division when we come back. Welcome back to Deep Waters. Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, right, 4-division champion, making his return in Nicaragua tonight. Of course, one of the greatest fighters, pound for pound, right now, of his era, for sure. When you look at him and his comeback, what is he looking for? That is the big question. Of course, we know about the abilities of Bam Rodriguez in the weight class. We know about Estrada. Would he be looking for another fight with him? That's what we're concerned about here on Deep Waters. Chris, what's your thought on not just the fight, but the future of Chocolatito, who's a legend right now in his own time?
Well, let's be honest. What's he looking for? Money. You know, he's already a legend. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's phenomenal. He's done it. He's done it all. He can never fight again, and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So why is he coming back? He's coming back for money. He's got this homecoming fight, which he's expected to win, expected to look good. He does look good, especially if he looks really good. If he looks like Chocolatito of old, boom, he steps right back into another Estrada fight. He stepped into a possible huge fight with Bam Rodriguez, even though they're sparring partners now. You know, so if a win here, and especially if he looks anywhere near what he used to look like or has looked like in the past, he goes right into a big fight, and he's going to get that paper.
Is that the point? Of course, Paulie, but how do you expect him to look in, you know, what we could call a showcase fight in his home of Nicaragua?
Yeah, you expect him to show up and show out. I said this on our news piece, man. I just think this is a fight that's set up to show up and show out. You know, you're in your hometown. You've been off for a little while. You've got to start the engine again and rev it back into high gear so you can get yourself one last big payday. You don't really want to build up small. So you say, you know what? If I got to start over from after all these months off, let me go back home and that'll start the momentum really quickly because everybody will be, you know, in anticipation of a big homecoming fight from this legendary champion. He can look good, and that's what you'd expect him to do. In that would at least be the goal, so that once he looks good and looks destructive, you can say, oh, you know what? Chocolatito's back. Chocolatito's got a big name. He's this legendary fighter. These champions here need either the champions that haven't fought him need a big name to defend against, and this here's a legendary name, or you can make second and third fights against these rivals, or the big champion, of course, is Bam Rodriguez. You can make a really big fight with him, even though, like the champion, like Chris said, they've been sparring partners. We've seen sparring partners go head to head in real fights before. So I think the goal is really to just be home and show up and show out there, and then just have an explosive performance in front of your home crowd, which creates a dynamic and an optics to say, oh, look at how crazy this crowd is going for him. They were really, really excited. And now that excitement for him to be back kind of bleeds over to us and we say, oh man, we're excited. This guy's back. Who do we want to see him against? Roman Gonzalez has been one of the more fun fighters to watch in this generation. Any little bit more of him you can get, I think people will take it.
That's right. The super flyweight division, it is stacked from top to bottom. In fact, we're going to do a coup de man. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. Don't miss it. We'll break it all down. But as far as deep waters go, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.